honestly, on the fare proposal. And the second one is going to be about the new proposed commuter rail schedule by Jody Ray, who's the Director of Rail Services. And then after both presentations, we're going to open it up. It's really not going to be a Q&A. It's really going to be, we're here to listen to your concerns, your comments, your suggestions. You know, it doesn't seem like we have too many people here. We're probably going to limit the comments to about 2 to 3 minutes a person. If you could just be courteous to everybody so everyone can get a chance to be heard. So with that, let's introduce Brian.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thanks everybody for being here. I'm going to walk through a quick deck here on the fare increase proposal.
Could you turn it up, please?
See you please. Back here. Is that any better? If you speak right to the microphone, probably. Can you hear me now? Thank you. Thank you.
It's an AT&T.
As you know, we're the MBTA is holding public meetings, receiving online comments about possible fare increase. We're going to take effect on July 1st, 2016. We're working very hard to control our own costs, to increase non-fare revenues for things like advertising, real estate, and parking revenues. We're also working on fare evasion. But despite all these things, we have a very significant operating deficit. Can you hear me, Charles? Yeah.
Turn it up.
We have a very significant budget deficit for next year, and that's why we are here talking about it. Can you hear me now?
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Think it'll work? All right. Can you hear me now? If not, I'll just hold it.
Just hold it.
Perfect. Good
Speak
enough.
loud.
So by law, we have to have a balanced budget. That is the reason we're here. Massachusetts taxpayers, many of whom don't use the system, currently fund the system at twice the amount of those who pay fares. So about $600 million a year in fare revenue, $1.2 billion in total state assistance. The control board, the fiscal management control board, which oversees the T, is asking those who benefit as riders to pay a little bit more. And if you look at the options we'll talk about here in a little bit, even under the more aggressive of the two, the Link Pass goes up by less than $10 a month. T-Pass is still really a bargain compared to what most other major transit systems pay or charge for unlimited monthly access. The law allows modest fare increases at 2 year intervals to help maintain a safe and reliable transit system. And it's the intention of the MBTA and the Fiscal Management Control Board to limit these increases to not more than every 2 years. So fares would increase on July 1st of this summer and would not increase again until July of 2018. Every dollar that we can save in cost control, which we've been working very hard on, and every dollar of revenue we can generate will go into capital expenditure in the system. And for that reason, we believe that a fare increase, like the other things we're working on the revenue side and the cost side, will lead to better service for the MBTA, for our customers, and for improved quality of life for everyone who uses the system. So on that note, let me walk through a few slides here. There it is. Okay. Let me first get to the question of why raise fares at all, because certainly we've gotten a lot of feedback from the public over the past month, and this is one of the first questions. One thing I think you've got to understand is that we're working very hard on a variety of cost control measures, and over the next 5 months, those things will be taking effect. In the 5-month period between the beginning of the fiscal year and November, we cut our structural deficit in half compared to what had been projected, and we're going to continue to work on that. These fare increases wouldn't take effect until July 1st, and I think by the time we get to July 1st, the riding public will be able to see a lot of the cost-oriented work that we're doing and start to see the dividends it's paying. Despite that, we do have a very large structural deficit, about $240 million next year, which is fiscal 17, headed to over $400 million in 2020. And as I said, there's a lot of money coming into this system from payers across the state that don't ride the system. Let me talk a little more about our focus on the cost side of things. As I said, our operating deficit is starting to come down. We were forecast to have a deficit of $170 million this year. I think we'll come in underneath that. For the first 5 months of the year, we had the lowest rate of operating cost expense in more than 15 years at the T, which is a direct result of a very active style of management and a focus on cost control. And we've got a whole bunch of initiatives happening right now on reducing our overtime spend and reducing absenteeism, which tends to drive overtime. We're also working on a variety of issues around non-fair revenue, things like advertising. For example, we have been the best 5 months in advertising we've had in years at the T. And we're cracking down on variation. Keolis has got 30 new conductors on the commuter rail. We have very strong revenue growth in November and December on the commuter rail, which I think has something to do with those conductors starting to be out and being more aggressive on fare collection. Should the T improve service first? Improving service is critical, and we understand for the rider population, this is what you care about. You care about the service. You don't care as much about what our budget deficit is. What you care about is service, if that's what you experience. Our view is that money put into the system through capital expenditure will have the most direct impact on the rider experience, and that every dollar we save in cost control and every dollar we raise through fares, advertising, and other things will go into capital investment in the system, which should very significantly improve service over time. We're also not considering widespread service cuts as part of this fare increase. We've highlighted a couple different areas of very high cost, low ridership service areas like late night service in Boston, which we've targeted for adjustment or elimination, but we're not looking at broad across the board service cuts this round. So why raise fares now? I think if you look historically, T fares were raised unpredictably, often in very large percentages, 15, 20%. It was often accompanied by widespread service cuts. Our policy now is to have modest and predictable fare changes once every 2 years and by no more than 10% system-wide. So as I said earlier, whatever happens with this fare increase in March will go into effect in July, and fares won't change again until July of 2018. Our automated fare collection system, which is the hardware, software set of equipment that controls the gates, that controls all the automated ticket machines on the buses, etc., takes about 3 months to program. So we need to vote on a fare increase by March so that our team can spend April, May, and June programming the system. That's one of the reasons why we're talking about it here now in February. We're going to talk about two options today, and I'll walk you through the details on some of these. The first option increases fares system-wide by 6.7%. The second option increases fares by just below 10%. The final decision by our board could involve a combination of these two, or potentially a third option or any other option which is brought up. We're taking very careful notes in all these hearings. We've got folks submitting ideas to us in writing as well. So when we come to a vote in March, it'll either be option 1 or 2, or it'll be some combination of the two, depending on what we hear from the public. Here's some of the key fares that are proposed, and you can see kind of the current price on option 1 and option 2. The basic bus ticket, single ride, for seniors would go from 80 cents to 85 cents. The student pass, a bus and rapid transit for the day would go from $1.05 to $1.10. The ride would go from $3 to $3.15 in option 1 to $3.25 in option 2. Inside the service area, it would go up to $5.25 or $5.50 outside the service area. In terms of our pass programs, we would converge the pricing of the senior tap pass and the student pass, so they were both at $32 a month, a little bit over $1 a day. This will give you a sense for what the impact is. Can I finish a quick, then I'll open it up for some questions. I'm going to open it up most importantly for public comment. This will give you a sense of the magnitude of the fare increase across the system. In the existing projections we have, we've already got a 5% projection of fare increase baked in. So while the option 1 raises about $33 million of fare revenue, option 2 raises just below 50. In terms of closing our fiscal 17 budget, the impact would be the fourth row you see there, which is somewhere between $10 and $26 million, which is a small part of our overall structural deficit, somewhere between 5 and 10%, but will be an important contributor, we hope. Fare box recovery will be below 40% in both these scenarios. Fare box recovery represents the total fare revenue divided by the operating cost. So in both these scenarios, we're below 40. The legislature in 2013 directed the T to get on a path over 5 years to get to 50%. There's two inputs there. One is fares and the other is operating expenses. So as we continue to reduce operating expenses, that will help that fare box recovery rate come up over time. But in either scenario, we're well below the legislative mandate. This will give you a sense on where we are in passes. I think the most important message when you look at this is that T-passes are still a bargain compared to other systems. New York, Philadelphia, Chicago, Portland, most of them are over $100. Our proposal would take, in the most significant option, which is option 2, would increase the fare by about $10, and option 1 would increase it to $82.50, which again would still be a little bit under $3 per day for unlimited trips. You can see below the link pass trips to break even, that's the bottom row here. What that shows you is, for example, if you look at option 2, if you divided $84.50 for a monthly pass by the $225, that would tell you how many trips you have to take to break even. For most of our peer agencies, that number is at 40 or above. Right now we're at 35.7, and these two projections in option 1 and option 2 would increase that multiple gradually. But again, still well below where our peers are. An equity analysis required for all fare changes under Title VI and FTA regulations. Central Transportation Planning Staff, CTPS in Boston, is a group that we work with to analyze the fare increase options. They've looked at both option 1 and option 2. And based on our disparate impact and disproportionate burden policies, they found no disparate impact nor disproportionate burden from either option 1 or option 2. They produced very detailed, lengthy reports, which are available on our website if anyone's interested in seeing them. It goes through every single mode of transportation. It forecasts but for different demographic groups and income levels what the impact would be, and that's available on the website for anyone who'd like to dig in. From a process standpoint, public meetings are now underway. We've been at it for about a week and a half. The final decision on fares will rest with our Fiscal and Management Control Board. The decision will be made in March. We're meeting on this regularly. We're discussing it every Monday in our public meetings. We've got a bunch of meetings coming up. We have one in Boston this morning. We've got another one in Boston tomorrow night. We've done Lynn, Malden, Brockton, and Concord so far. And we welcome your feedback. So I'm going to encourage everyone to come up and speak tonight so that we can take notes. I will also encourage you, if you want to submit anything in writing, there's an email address here. There's also a tool online, which is the Spare Options Comparison Tool that you can use to take a look at different scenarios and kind of how your fare would change under options 1 and options 2. With that, I was going to turn it over to Corey to talk about our commuter rail, and then we can take some questions and open it up to public comment.
All right, good evening, everybody. My name is Corey Lynch. I'm a Deputy Director for Commuter Rail Operations. Jody Gray's in the back here, but I'm doing the presentation tonight. So, talk a little bit about the why and the how we went about the schedule change process, so you guys have an awareness. So, starting, the major goal of this was to create a reliable and resilient schedule to promote on-time performance. Some of our schedules today have existed for decades with minor tweaks here and there. Over time, things get added to the schedule, taken away, services change, patterns change, and what ends up happening is you have two trains looking at the same piece of track. They want to have it at the same time, which creates inherent delay in the schedule. So what we've done is hit the reset button, started from the ground up to create a whole new set of schedules across most of the system, to try to build some reliability into the schedule and take out those inherent delays that are there. One of the other goals here was to try to reduce overcrowding on trains. Sometimes we shifted times to try to give people more options to get into work at certain times. In other cases, we actually tried to split trains up, creating an express followed immediately by a train that runs about halfway down the line, making all local stops. In the background, we make more logical and efficient equipment moves so that equipment will stay on the entire line all day, And I got to slide a little bit further on this in a minute. And then, of course, the goal here is to get everybody in and out of their destination station, primarily Boston in this case, at times that are convenient for working hours. So where do we hit this? Everywhere on the system, we change the schedules, except the old colony lines. The old colony lines are the most modern infrastructure-wise. They're also the most modern as far as the time when they were actually constructed from a schedule standpoint. They run consistently 95% on-time performance month over month. They're built around the infrastructure, and the trains can get from point A to point B reliably on time. This is what we're trying to build in and trying to introduce into some of these other lines to up the OTP a little bit and provide a more reliable service. So, equipment movements, this is what I was talking about on the first slide here. We have equipment, we only run 300 or so trains with 40 sets of equipment on the south side, includes the Worcester line. So throughout the course of the day, each train set will make multiple trips. Under today's operation, they go all over the place. So as you can see here, this particular set touches 5 different commuter rail lines. Any delay, possibly on one of these lines, could impact the subsequent delay. So a delay on the Stoughton round trip could delay an evening Worcester train, because that set of equipment would be coming into Boston to make that Worcester train, and it's late. So now your Worcester train's late. So those are some of the things we're trying to do. So this train now, in the new proposed schedule, it starts today on the Worcester line. It remains on the Worcester line all day long. You won't be impacted by delays on any of the other lines. So what you guys see out of this is riders. We increased the peak train service 2 ways. In some cases, we actually added trains, and in some cases, we re-standardized the peak box. Some of our schedules are very inconsistent today about how the peak period is applied. So we picked a target of 6 a.m. to 10 a.m., basically start of service to 10 a.m. for arrivals in Boston, and evening departures between 3:30 and 7 p.m. This is keyed in to optimize arrival times for 7, 8, 9, and subsequent, like a 10 o'clock job start or a 9:30 job start. And then anybody who is leaving work, 3, 4, 5, 6. And there should be options for most lines on the half hour as well. So that's the goal behind what we're trying to do here. And again, to circle back here, reduce the train crowding and delays as a result of train crowding. Lastly, in the off-peak, we try to maintain a consistent departure headway so trains depart roughly at the same frequency throughout the course of the day. Some of the things that we have in the background going on that the public doesn't necessarily see, but it's important for us to be able to provide a good product for you. I already touched on the reducing of interlining trains so that the trains will stay on the same line all day long. We also standardized our turn time to 15 minutes. Now what a turn time is when a train comes out from Boston, it gets here to Worcester, and then it has to turn back around and come back into Boston. It doesn't actually physically turn around, but the crew needs to perform certain operations in order to make that train ready to come back. We found that the most optimized time here is 15 minutes. In some cases in today's schedules, I think the shortest turn we have is actually 8 minutes, which is about at the physical limit of what a crew can do when they're really moving hard to turn the train around. So this will also allow us to get, a train that's run 2, 3, 4 minutes late, be able to turn around and get back on schedule so a delay doesn't propagate throughout the course of the day. And if it is 15 minutes late, we should be able to cut 5 minutes off of this turn right away, just right here. So it builds the resiliency into the schedule. Once we figured out what we're going to do for schedules, we plugged them into rail traffic control. What RTC is a computer program that has the entire commuter rail system, all the infrastructure laid out, all the tracks, all the signals, all the bridges, everything. We can then plug the schedule into this computer program and run it for a day to see if there's any conflicts any problems, and remove those two trains looking at each other, wanting the same piece of track at the same time. One of the other things, in between the rush hours and overnight, we need to make sure we have adequate time to service the trains. They need fuel, they need maintenance, they need cleaning. So those are the things that we do, and we try to schedule that in the middle of the day and overnight. And then at some locations, we were able to model some new infrastructure, particularly on the Fitchburg line. They just went under a whole new 3-year project. And the Worcester line, we're anticipating most of the distressing work to be done, as well as the impacts that are being caused by the new balance station that's being built in towards Boston. So just like the fairs, we're after your feedback. The feedback is running in parallel through February 12th, 2 weeks still left on this. We also need about 2 months from the time we finalize our schedules to get everything done out to the public with sufficient time for you guys to replan if your trains are changing significantly. And we're looking to have these take effect on Monday, May 23rd, which is the Monday before Memorial Day. So, like Chief Administrator Shortsleeve said earlier, we want your feedback. We're ready to listen. Please survey, email, or speak tonight.
What does that say, CRS?
Thank you, Corey. I've got Representative Hannah Kane, I believe, is here. Are there any other elected officials that would like to speak? We typically start with electeds. If not, Representative Kane, would you like to come up and speak? Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I'm here to listen tonight. I'm a member of the Transportation Committee, and I came here tonight to hear directly from all of you what you think about these proposed changes. I think that Brian did a nice job articulating, and Corey, why these changes are here, and I'm very interested in hearing directly from you what you think of these changes. So I'm here as a listener tonight, happy to listen to what you're going to say up here, and I'm in the back of the room if anyone would like to talk to me one-on-one as well. I represent Shrewsbury and Westboro, but as a Transportation Committee member, I would welcome anyone who's here to come back and talk to me. Thank you.
All right, thanks a lot, Rob. So what we're going to do is we gave out numbers for anyone that wants to speak. So we started with number 50.
I'm Adrienne Balkin, and I just moved to Grafton on September 1st. So many briefcases. I just moved to Grafton from Munson, Massachusetts. I have lived in Marlborough and Southborough and Hopedale in the past. But Grafton is very isolated as far as being able to get to the train station, because the train station's in North Grafton. But anyway, I'm an architect. I have a degree from the Boston Architectural College. I'm a planner. And right now I'm disabled, but I do attend and follow Metropolitan Area Planning Council meetings. In fact, I'm going to one in Hull next week. But what I see here is kind of an old school approach to this problem and finding a solution. Is that the old school solution is, is maybe juggling the schedule around and maybe raising, of course, the fares. But when you talked about user experience, you weren't really talking about user experience. You were just talking about a certain population that's fixed, commuters and students that have to use the services of the trains and the buses, etc. And they're caught there. They have to pay the extra fare increases. I don't take the train at all, unless I drive into Natick and park in the apartments where my son lives, and I walk over to the Natick train station and pay half of what I would pay to go from Grafton. But needless to say, I would like to know what the MBTA is doing about true user experience. increasing ridership, whether they're using a service design methodology and a design thinking methodology to increase ridership rather than just to increase fares.
Okay, thank you very much. Number 51, please.
So we're not going to answer the question?
No.
Jill Hart, I live in Worcester now. I have lived in Boston, and also when I first moved here, I worked part-time in Boston, so I would go back and forth. And again, I echo what the previous speaker said. This is, you know, the subways in Boston, of course, are like two-wheel trolleys. Everything is, you know, nothing is going ahead at all. There's a huge amount of problems with just day-to-day transportation. And again, I'm talking about the buses in Boston, I'm talking about a lot of things, and no one has done anything at all to make anything better. Worcester has been just savaged by all of this. You know, even though we're the first people to get on the train to go to Boston, we are all crammed into one car because it's easier for everybody. So even though we pay the highest fare, we have the worst trip. It's nonsense. You know, there's a double-decker train ahead of you, but you can't go to it. So I just don't understand. Again, Boston, Worcester is so used to being treated badly that nobody speaks up. I've been talking about things like this for years, although I just now, since I don't go to Boston much anymore, I really haven't done that much. And again, Mr. Jones used to tell us that we couldn't have express trains. And Mr. Palmieri, who I don't think is even here tonight, I didn't see him, was, you know, very eager for express trains. And now tonight you haven't said anything about it. So I don't know, are we having them or not having them? Somebody should, I think, speak up.
Talking about non-stop service?
Yeah.
There is a non-stop train in each direction.
Okay, but again, why wasn't that sort of told to everybody? That is, in a sense, good news, although, as I understand, also it's bad news, because since the trains can't meet, because there's not enough time for them to meet, and apparently it's delaying other trains. So again, this should be talked about. You have an audience here. So everybody should, you know, have this news. Also, just for a lot of other things that nobody knows about, is that since nothing is run well, like for instance the bus to Cambridge, it used to always be like 5 in a row almost. And then when you got to Harvard Square, everybody would just get on the train because apparently the drivers had been told that they have to be on time. So in order to be on time, they just stop, people go in the back door. So you lose fares right and left, and nobody does anything. And the same thing is also true about conductors on the train. They also let you go right by without a ticket. I mean, you have your ticket, but they don't collect it. So there's just simply a lot of really 19th century, you know, things not running well. And, you know, again, all of this has been told. I used to go to board meetings at the DFP. I used to speak to a lot of people. Nothing has ever changed at all. You haven't really ever talked to Worcester about what schedules people would like. Not ever. And even when we did speak up about a variety of things, nobody hit the big foot. So what you need is more modern trains. What you need are electric trains. And nobody's planning to go even into the 20th century, much less the 21st. So why don't you have progress meetings, like what can we do? Disabled people, I don't know now if anything has been done to any of the tracks to allow people, I mean at Natick, for instance. And again, none of the information that people are given is correct. I have been having to be hoisted up from gravel onto a train because it was in the wrong, you know, in the wrong lane. If the train was correct, but they don't tell you it's going to be on that track. This is invariably true at night and weekend. And again, after 15 years, nobody's changed anything. You haven't changed the signage, you've done nothing. You know, you need to operate like a real business, and then you can raise fares. Do the corrections first.
Thank you very much. Number 52, please.
Hi, my name is David Perry. I'm a daily commuter from Ashland. I run a little blog for those of you who might follow me on Twitter. I also have printed copies of the draft schedule. If I didn't get you before the meeting, I can get you one right after I'm done talking. So give me a wave and I will give you a copy of the schedule. I'll divide my comments into two sections that the staff addressed. The first comment that I have on the fare increase is one thing that the folks here didn't mention, and I understand that most of the folks here are bureaucrats. They're working for the DOT. They're not really the decision makers. I'd like to address my comments, and Representative, with all due respect, it's not even really directed at you. My comment is really towards Governor Baker. He has claimed that we were going to have no new fees and no new taxes. But somehow the MBTA is allowed to increase fees 5, 10, up to 23%, independent of this idea of a freeze on fees. So I know that I'm not really talking to the right audience, but somebody's got to bring this back to him and the administration, and somebody's got to say, hey, this does not make sense. There's all kinds of information out there on the internet that shows how gas tax is flat. The gas tax being tied to the price of gas means that gas tax revenues are actually going down. So we that ride the MBTA are being forced to pay higher fares while gasoline people are going down. There's no equity here. So there really needs to be a kind of more holistic, beyond what we've seen in this whole fare proposal, a more holistic approach to fares and to costs for the taxpayers. And then this whole idea, the only other point that I'll make about the fare increase, and this is directed towards it at the legislature, there's some silliness here. The idea, you can look this up, there's this idea that the legislature passed a limit that the fares can only be raised 5%. And so the MBTA has made a legal interpretation that doesn't apply to passes. Passes aren't fares, according to the MBTA's legal department. So passes can go up 10, 23%. So that's just ludicrous. That's just ridiculous. That just doesn't pass the straight face test. So that's what I have to say about fares. I've written a lot about my opinions on the schedule. I don't want to get into all the technical details here. I will make one comment on the bullet train. There's a bullet train, the previous speaker asked about it. The bullet train, there's one train in the morning, leaves much later in the commute, I think around 8 o'clock or something, getting into Boston, essentially after 9 o'clock. I think it's a few minutes before, but once you walk to work, you're at work after 9 o'clock. So the bullet train in the morning, and then the bullet train in the evening. The bullet train in the evening leaves at 7:40, I think gets to Worcester at 8:40 or something just ridiculous. And when I say bullet, what I mean is that a train that's going directly from Worcester to Boston and Boston to Worcester, stopping at no stations in between. To me, that is a useless waste of equipment. The equipment that you're saving maybe 10 minutes for a rider that's riding all the way out to Worcester, you know, but you're shortchanging the passengers in Grafton, Westboro, Southboro, and Ashland. Yep. So put that equipment to better use. Get away from this idea of round-trip service, Boston to Worcester in under an hour. It makes a nice sound bite, but we don't want sound bites. We want logical service that makes sense. Put it back as a regular express that services all the stations between Framingham and Worcester and balance out that service. So that's my main point about the schedules. I've got all kinds of other ideas, and you can read about them on my blog. I don't want to bore you to death talking about them. Thanks, Dave.
Anybody want a copy of the schedule?
Number 53, please.
Hi, my name is Terry Kelly. I'm from Worcester. I just think the infrastructure needs to be fixed first before they put any prices up. Get the system working. Do not put the prices up. And then when the system is working and it's clean and it's clear and everybody is happy with the service, then put the prices up. It's sad when we have people that are on I hear people all the time, it's a delay, it's a delay. I see people here waiting to pick people up. And they're waiting forever. And they're sitting here, and there's actually Union Station, there's nothing here for them. There's not a drink, there's no snacks, there's a restaurant if you want to pay an arm and a leg. I've seen college students sit here on the floor and get harassed because they think they're bums. It's really sad. The system, the whole system needs to be revamped. It needs to be fixed. I'm all for change. I'm all for the positive. But when I see people waiting forever to pick somebody up, there's delays, it's sad. This place is sad. And if you look at this building, it needs to be fixed. It's rusted. The railways need to be fixed. It's not good. Check the railways. Even the freight railways coming to here, CSX, check it. Things needing to be fixed before you put any prices up. And the pass for the 10 rides, that's a safety net for some people. It gives a person a little extra days or time to get that monthly pass. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Number 54, please. 55?
How is this going to affect the buses with the WRTA? Are the prices are going to go up? You got to.
It's not related. This isn't related. This is for MBTA service. So that would be the kind of the MBTA buses that run in kind of Boston and the surrounding area.
But you got the Charlie card, right? And the WRTA, the people that have the Charlie card can use the buses.
But they're programmed differently to take a different fare.
So is the prices going to go up on the buses for Worcester as well?
We don't really, I don't think we have control over that, but I'd say.
Charles Plank, do you know the answer to that?
There's nothing current right now with WRTA fare change.
Number 55? 55.
My name is Jess. I live in Worcester, and I pay about $3,800 a year just to get to work and back. And for me, I mean, if I need to get in to my office at reasonable hours, the 7 o'clock train are pretty much nothing. If I need to get into my desk by 8 o'clock, I'm leaving before 6 a.m. from my house, and I'm leaving before 6 a.m. from the platform here. So the proposed fare changes are exasperating to me because that's not fixed. And that bullet train is unusable by anybody that needs to be at their desk by 9 o'clock in the morning. I'm also incredibly frustrated still with the 7 o'clock train that, again, it no-showed about 3 weeks ago. It no-showed, and no response on the Twitter feed, no response anywhere else. Nobody knows what's going on. Eventually, you kind of get an aw shucks response from somebody at the commuter rail. In the meantime, the 7:30 train comes. It's a short train. It's standing room only the entire way in. My commute ended up being pretty close to 3 hours. It's about 15 minutes shy of 3 hours to get in that morning from the moment I left my house to get to the 7 a.m. train. So I understand I'm not immune to the realities that we need to be making money. You know, we need to raise the funds, but I'm a little bit frustrated with this. So this is getting to be a little too much of an ask at this point without some significant improvements in day-to-day service.
Thank you very much. Number 56, please.
Good evening. My name is Cynthia Senebar, and I live in Shrewsbury, and I commute from Grafton to Yawkey. Been doing that since about September. I do not support the fare increase. I agree with the gentleman that spoke earlier about how the state needs to start looking more holistically as transportation. The MBTA is just one cog in the entire transportation system, and we just need, we're dependent on each other. the west, the north, the south, the east, we have to be able to move people, goods, and services around the state efficiently. And like I said, the MBTA is just one piece of that. We need a holistic approach. We need to stop giving great big tax breaks to like GE is coming in, they got this big tax incentive to come and move here. And I support GE coming in here, don't get me wrong. But again, who is now being asked to pick up the funding difference? The average man and woman, and frankly, those least able to pay for it. I just don't support the fare increase. Again, we need a more holistic approach. The other thing is, as far as the schedule, these are minor tweaks to the schedule. This is not going to make a big difference. It's not expanding service. There's certain stations that are not serviced at all during the day for long gaps. I'd like to know if they've explored the idea of going to, servicing half the stations on the line, but running every hour throughout the day, so that there aren't these big gaps during the day, as opposed to having a local train versus, the express trains. Just service half the stations and run every hour, 7:15, 8:15, 9:15. That's pretty reliable and predictable as a user. The other thing is, have we explored marketing to visitors to the state to use the MBTA and packaging this as vacation passes, another way to raise revenue? Have we looked at ways of increasing ridership between the lines, like Grafton and Westboro, or not everybody going from Worcester all the way, assuming everyone's going to bus. How about between inner lines and things like that? So I don't see any discussion of that, and I think those are ways to increase revenues and also improve service.
All right, thank you very much. Number 57, please.
Here's my ticket. Right. Hi, I'm Paula Collins from Shrewsbury. I'm a rookie rider on the T. I just started in June. And I got a pretty rude awakening when I got on the T, I gotta say. And my strategy on the T is I get on and I let it go, because I can't control it. But sadly, I can't rely on it either. So I believe very firmly that people will pay for reliable service and good service, and they'll pay more for it, but that has to come first. What I've observed is 5-mile-an-hour rides when it was too hot, train not coming when it was too cold. I'm trying to think of the latest one because it was a beauty and I can't think of it off the top of my head. But the other thing that concerns me is the quality of the commuter stations themselves. They're not safe. The Grafton station is very, very isolated. If you're a woman coming into that station early in the morning or at night, it is dangerous, bottom line. Yawkey, beautiful lighting at Yawkey. People can watch you getting attacked from the Mass Pike and wave, but it's so isolated you can't, it's dangerous. There's no services, there's no bathroom. If there's a 3-hour delay on the train, 10-minute, 2-hour, there's no bathroom. There's no place to grab a snack at Union Station. That doesn't even make sense to me, I don't even get that. So those are the things to me, is service has to come first, and then I think people will ride, and then you would increase your ridership, which puts more fares on. The other thing from a marketing, I'm a marketing girl, and the shocker to me was that the 10-ride pass costs the same as a single ride. I don't quite get why I'm buying a 10-ride pass, except that I don't have to do it. It's easy on my phone. I just jump the thing on, I'm on in 2 seconds. I do it at the train station in the morning. That part is great. That app is fantastic. I love that. But I want the 10-ride discount. If I'm giving you my money up front, I want to pay less. So one thing that I think I would like to see is some respect for the commuters, for the people who ride every single day. That the monthly pass is the least expensive, the 10-ride has a discount, and then if you were looking at your rate, if it were me, I was thinking about it, I would think rate increase on that single, right? That way I'm getting tourists, I'm getting people to ride once in a while. What do they care if it's an extra buck? They're not going to even notice. But the people that ride every day that are relying on it for work, that is trying to figure out, can I take this job for $50,000 in Boston when I have to come from Boston, or am I just going to take a job for 40 in Worcester because I can't afford the commute? That's the things to think about. And then the other thing I want to talk about for a minute is the ride. I could talk for 2 hours about the ride. I work with people with disabilities. I have a son with a disability, and the ride is unreliable as well, on a grander scale than if you guys think the commuter rail is tough, take the ride. My guys can't rely on getting to work on time or taking a ride because they never know what's going to happen. The other issue that I'm hearing feedback from the ride is that it's cash. So right now, if it's $3, cash is easier than $3.15. And some of the drivers are a little persnickety about that change and having exact change. So what I think might save some money is if you had a system in place where, just like the T-app, you could buy a 10-ride pass on the ride ahead of time. And you just show it to the driver and say, okay, I'm done. So you're not having to carry cash or manipulate. Remember, most of the people who are taking the ride have some sort of disability. Many, many, many of them are mentally challenged. And money is difficult. Dollar bills are easy. Change, not so much. So that's my comment about the ride. And then I would suggest a board of riders. Go to the different lines and see if you can get a couple of people from each line that ride it on a regular basis. Because I can tell you, from standing on the platform, I give some good feedback. And there is some positive feedback. I gotta hand it to the conductors, the guys that we have on this line. They're all great. And we've had delays, and it's gotta be miserable for them. When we got stuck in Natick a couple weeks ago because there was an accident on the line, these guys handled it with class. They didn't freak out. They weren't, panicking. They were like, okay, we'll let you know when we know. I mean, they really, so your staff is doing a great job, but it's got to come from the top, and the service has to get better before you can ask for more money. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Number 58, please. I think I grabbed that one to take notes. Number 59.
Thomas Weber, Marlborough, Massachusetts. I'm the other type of Worcester train rider, 15 years. Now I gotta tell you, I ride the worst train on the worst line in the worst transit system in America. I look back to how bad it was with Amtrak. Those were the good old days. It cost me $4.75 a ride. Now it's gonna be $10 a ride. The timing, well, you got to Boston in about 50 minutes. It's not faster, it's slower. We don't have more choices. I'm paying $24 a day under this new system, and that's obscene. It's my 4th set of fare hearings in 10 years, and I've spoken at all of them. And I keep hearing the same thing. We're going to improve service. You lied to me once, you lied to me twice, you lied to me 3 times. This is the 4th time. You're totally full of it. The service is worse. It is not one bit better. Now, you look at everything. Should you be raising fares? Well, no. But of course the T is bankrupt. It skips on maintenance. And when you skip on maintenance, things break down. Someone said, what are the excuses? Well, it's actually very simple. In the spring, rain. Rails are wet. We're slow. Summer, heat. 2 years ago, they assured me, MBCR at the fare hearing, there were 3 of us there. They eliminated heat delays because they changed the rails outside of Wellesley. That was a lie. We had them again. The fall, wet leaves, back to the wet. Winter, snow. They have an excuse in every season. Nothing has changed, except you want more money from me. And it's ridiculous. Now, the legislature, and I'm sorry to single you out, there's only one of you here. I've seen 12 at other once. There's no leadership from them either. Ultimately, we can't agree on the service we want and how much we want to pay for it, and we pass the buck. We subsidize cars, we do any number of things. But if you're on that train, you're a second-class citizen. Now, in terms of the schedule, it amazes me that Newton is overserved. 3 stops, some are not all that busy. Wellesley's ridiculously overserved. 6 people get on at some of those stops. And of course, the Wellesley people, who have $1 million houses, dodge the fares. They hide, they go to the bathroom, they do anything. Only in Wellesley. Then you get Framingham. Framingham, totally overserved. Every train has to stop there. What's the problem with that? Well, it's quite simple, actually. There's zero parking. Ashland has 300 empty spaces a day. In 2004, it had 100. The fare increases have done that. Where do people in Ashland go? They drive in, or they go to Framingham, where they get private spots and the T gets no revenue from that. Quit sending people to Framingham and capture the parking revenue. Use those 300 empty spaces in Ashland every day. Now, a minor thing on the schedule, and I'll address a few of those, renumber the trains. The new proposed schedule, it used to be simple, 500, 502, 504, 506. You threw in 580. Now the numbers are all over the place. Just renumber everything. We'll learn to live with it. Trains 506 and 508, the express and the local, prime trains into Boston, still running within 10 minutes of each other. So when 506 is late, 508 takes it as well. Separate those trains so they can run. At noontime, you used to have a noon train and a 1 o'clock train for early releases. Now it's going to be at 12:40 and at 2 o'clock. I've got coworkers, they know I come. They say that's silly. Why do we have 11, 12:40, and 2? It's dumb. And of course, in the afternoon, you've eliminated some of the good trains to try and make them run. Now, I heard all of the ideas before, run every other one. You didn't try it. You're tweaking the schedule. It's not going to work better. Ultimately, we as the consumers have to make a decision. Do we want to keep riding this? Some of you may know about the couple that met on the train, fell in love and got married. They were my friends. I was in that wedding. Guess what? They don't take the train. They met on the train. They married on the train. It's not reliable enough for them to take the train. Somehow you need to get the train ride into Boston down. And the New Balance, I don't see that improving it. It's going to add 10 more minutes. Because I can leave my house at 6:45 in the morning to catch the 7:08 train out of Ashland. And if I catch that 7:08 train, I get into Boston at 8:20. If I leave my house and drive, I get into Boston at 7:50. And at $24 a day, you better believe that's not cheaper than parking. So the train's not faster, the train's not more reliable, the train's not more comfortable. What are you competing on? The fact that people have nothing else. Don't raise the fares again. Quit lying to us. Fix the damn service.
Excellent.
Thank you, sir. Number 60.
Hi, my name is Helga Lyons. I am a daily commuter from this station to Boston. I actually live in Princeton. I get up at 4:30 in the morning to take the 605. I've been doing it for 2.5 years. And that train has about 6 double-decker cars. By the time you get to Framingham, it's standing room only. The nice thing about the train is that it leaves here on time because it comes out of parking right here in Worcester. And guess what? That train is going to disappear. It's the one train that's going to disappear from the schedule. It is full, standing room only, and it runs on time. It'll be history. Instead, we will be getting a train that leaves at 7:55, arriving at 8:57, which is way too late for a regular commuter. I don't know why we have this train. It makes no sense. It makes all the sense in the world to keep the 605. That's one comment on the schedule. I happen to use the 10 pounds ticket, and that will disappear. I have yet to understand why. I'd like an explanation. I also cannot support the proposed increases until I understand better how we manage the budget of the the public transit system, because in the presentation we had tonight, we had some very general comments on how we're going to cut expenses and how we're going to maintain the system. No specifics. I'd like to understand that better. I'd like to understand how we're going to cut costs, how we're going to maintain better the system, and how we're going to enhance on our capital expenditures. And unless I understand that as a commuter, I really don't feel like paying more.
All right, thank you very much. Just so everyone knows too, we have throughout the room, there are a lot of members of the MBTA staff here. So afterwards, if you have specific questions, please feel free to grab somebody, and we can get into detail on some of these kind of specific questions that you have. We don't want you leaving here feeling that your questions weren't answered. I think we're at number 61.
Hey, PK Blue here from Sturbridge. I commute in Boston every day from Worcester. Feel a bit disconnected here, but take the train every morning, take the train back every night. It runs on time 95% of the time. Nobody's for fare increases, but it seems like this new schedule seems to offer more service. Times work better for me. The bullet train, I wish it was earlier. Would get me into work a little too late if I took it, and get me home a little too late. But in general, things don't seem to be going too bad for me. I like the proposed changes. Seem to offer me a few more options. The price increase, it sucks, but you got to pay for something. And I guess the only question I have is the 5% or the 10%. Is there different service offerings, or where would the difference in the money that's being raised be funded? But otherwise, I like the new schedule.
Yeah, I don't think there's any difference in service from the 5 and 10. Or, those are just different options that the board's looking at right now, and then what the implications would be, for revenue-wise. And those are just 2 options. And then the third option that the administrator spoke about would be kind of really anything else.
Okay.
So, number 62, please.
My name is Jason Thies. I'm a daily commuter out of Worcester. I'm actually originally from Agawam, which is Western Mass, so I understand. I just work in Boston. I tell people that all the time. But I've been commuting for about 2 years now, and the MBTA is not perfect. However, it's the best option I have, and I will agree with the previous speaker in that in general, the trains do run on time. Again, I take multiple trains. I usually try to take that 605, sometimes I take the 630, sometimes I take the 7, and I take multiple different trains back depending on how long I'm working. I'm going to speak mostly in favor of both of these things, so I hope no one has tomatoes to throw at me. But, I do represent probably about a dozen people that get on at Back Bay and go to Worcester every day, and we're all in support of the schedule. Most people understand about the rate. Again, no one likes to pay more. However, what I see, I'm on a board of several nonprofits that I serve on. I'm also been a school committee member in Oxford for 3 years, and I understand budgets, and I understand expenses, and I understand the lack of maintenance, and I understand the lack of deferment of costs that have occurred over the past couple decades, unfortunately by my father's generation, and I beat him up for it all the time. But there's a lot of stuff that hasn't got done over the past several decades, and unfortunately that's falling on my generation now to pay for it. So I'd rather have a 5% here, a 5% there, than every 5 years we have to figure out where we're going to come up with $3 billion or $6 billion. It's unsustainable from the long-term perspective, and we need to really understand that while it's not ideal, we need to keep up with the costs as things grow. I'll speak real quickly about the schedule. I am in favor of the bullet train. A lot of us work late in Boston. We have obligations after work. We have meetings after work. We work on projects, especially when it comes around project time. So that particular train at night is great because it won't take me 2 hours to get back to Worcester. The morning one is a little late. Will I use it occasionally? Probably, but it's not really ideal. But I'd like to say in general, most of us are supportive, at least that get on Back Bay, of the schedule change. So thank you.
Thank you very much. last number taken, but if anyone else has any comments, I'd like to open it up. Who's going to win?
Ladies first. Hi, my name is Susan, and I'm take the train in Grafton. I think my frustrations are I do the monthly pass. I pay $320 a month, and I pay $80 a month to park. So my issue is that there are a lot of times where I see where people don't have to pay because they have the card. Well, I pay whether they collect or not. An example, for last month, there was 3 times where I could have rode without paying. I don't have that option. I don't know if something can be done where we could send an email, I don't know. That's just very frustrating for me. It's also frustrating for me that there's only 2 doors to get out of the train. And one of the conductors the other day said that there was a complaint filed because a woman couldn't get off the train because everybody was ahead of the scheduled stop. But I understand why they do that, because it takes a while to get to one end or the other end of the train because there's not enough doors open. Mm-hmm. So, those things I find, I think that the people that work the trains have been great, the staff's great, but my frustration is why do I pay? What encourages me to get a monthly pass? I don't understand. So, but I just wanted to express that. I don't know if any of you have the same issues. I don't see why people that have a card and it's not shown because they don't collect, they don't pay. Oh, wait, I have one more thing. Sure. Because I do work in the city and I work late, I get out late. I don't understand why there's not another express. It's hard. Very seldom can I get the 5. I don't ever get the 5. It's hard for me to get the 5:30. I think most people work at least until 5 or 5:30. Why isn't there a 6 o'clock express? It takes almost an hour and a half to get home. So I think those things are important. I understand that they want to do a rate increase, but I think we're not accommodated to some extent.
Thank you very much. And one thing that was presented earlier, when Administrator Shortsleeve spoke, the MBTA added 30 extra conductors to collect fares to really cut down on that, on the fare avoidance. So it is something that we are taking very serious, and we are working towards improving that a lot. So.
Is that one of the reasons to eliminate the 10 ride?
To be honest with you, I'll find out for you. I really don't know the answer.
But yes.
Yes, I heard a yes.
I have 300 of those. I can show you how many times there are multiple punches on them. I've saved 15 years worth of 10 rides. I can show you.
Well,
sir?
you just make it automatic, like on the app. You can still buy the 10 rides, we'll make it a cut.
Yes, yeah.
Just add very quick 2 comments. One, I just wanted to add one more voice in support of the bullet trains. I've trained from Worcester to Boston for very long, so the bullet trains are great, so keep those on schedule possibly. And the other is the B schedule seems to really put a lot of the fees on the Worcester riders and not as much on the people who get off early. I'm not sure the costs are kind of split in proportion to that, so if somebody could take a look at the fee schedules to see if there's a way to recalibrate them, the fixed percent increase at $1,000 percent a lot more than Worcester riders. So if there's a way to just add, say, $10 to everybody, that seems a little more fair. So,